The Jim Channel Podcast, bringing you the big picture on geoscientific information management through interviews and discussions.
I'm Sarah Mitchell. I'm the host of today's podcast, and I'm joined by Misha Stacker from Acquire. Hi, Misha.
Hi there, Sarah.
2016 marks 20 years of business for Acquire, and today we have a special guest. We've invited Jeremy Vincent from Capstone Mining Corporation. Jeremy is the manager of Production and Development Geology for Capstone and has over 11 years of experience in exploration and geological project management. Capstone Mining Corporation, if you don't know, is a Canadian-based metals company with 3 producing copper mine sites in the Pinto Valley in the USA, Cosamine in Mexico, and Minto in Canada. Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
Hi. Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
We're good. It's always interesting to do these things because we're recording this in Australia and you're in Canada, so we're actually recording on 2 separate days. So thank you for joining us at the end of your day.
Yeah, no troubles at all.
Just to get started, could you tell us a little bit about when you started your career in exploration and geology?
Yeah, I started as soon as I finished university. I had an opportunity to go and join an exploration drilling campaign up in central Yukon, and it was a kind of a camp-based scenario where I did a rotation 4 weeks in and 2 weeks out, and we were basically running a fairly intensive infill drilling campaign for gold in a manto-style replacement deposit. And so that was about a year-long contract, and then from there my career just kind of evolved.
Excellent. It sounds cold when you say mining in the Yukon.
It definitely had its moments, especially it was actually run over the entire year, and so we were continuing to drill in the middle of winter, and it did provide pose some challenges, but we were able to do it. We didn't really have any major shutdowns or anything like that, and it was a fantastic experience. I've spent a couple of years in Yukon, and I always enjoy my time whenever I go up there. It's a beautiful place to work, and you kind of you get used to the chilly times in the winter, and a little bit of lack of a lack of sunlight, I should say. But then it's all made up for in the summer, which is absolutely fantastic up there.
Excellent. If you just want to reflect back to when you first started, what were the challenges that you were seeing or that you were facing with information management, what we call GIM, when you first started?
That's a good question. I don't know if I can. Well, I guess when I came out of school, I was still pretty naive to all of this stuff in general. Schooling in general, at least in my experience, a lot of the students don't really come out with the experience needed, with, let's say, some sort of advanced database or kind of managing data. It's something that you have a natural inclination as to what you're supposed to do, and then we kind of make do with it there. But in terms of actually having an idea of what was best practice and how things should be, how data should be managed and transferred and stored, etc. That was something I definitely didn't have coming out. And so when I look back now, the software even since then has I think it's evolved quite a lot.
If the universities didn't place any importance on it or didn't focus on that, and you got out into the industry, what did you find out about GIM and information management? Why did you think that was important?
Well, later on in my career, I ended up joining an international consultancy firm, and it was actually I joined them more as a junior member on their staff, and I was fortunate enough to get a lot of really, really good training from them and development actually in my skill set, learning what best practices were around data management, around QA/QC, sampling, a lot of things that are quite honestly fundamental to exploration and to mining. And through my university education, there was a bit of a, let's say, a high-level background, or at least a high-level education we're given in QA/QC if one takes some proper chemistry courses, or in sampling, which we do get a bit of an idea of, but it's not really tied together with a ribbon and a bow put on it, at least in my experience. And so it was actually, like I said, through my experience with this consultancy that then really kind of opened my eyes to best practices in with GIM and in data management and everything around it. And so that's when I really started to get the importance of it, and then I started to from there I was able to with kind of future jobs after my time with the consultancy, I had the opportunity to be exposed to these software packages, and then at least from there I could move and understand what we should be doing with this, and how we should be managing the data in the best ways possible.
Jeremy, can you tell us a story or give us an example of where GIM or having a GIM solution in an organization provided commercial impact or some sort of a benefit to the organization?
Yeah, I think there's I think there's several. There's an anecdote, that and we can look back even with. We can even go into database manipulation, and I think we can. There's been some stories in the past of people working for companies, and they've been under pressure, and they've gone and artificially manipulated data in a database that that I think would have been much more auditable if it were some sort of GIM software where there's a more obvious audit trail. But personally speaking, I've come across instances where the database was effectively a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, and in there there's lots of opportunity for mistakes to be made, and no one who's kind of managing that spreadsheet or acting as a database manager is intending to make any mistakes, but there were some fairly strong ones that we were able to identify with assays being, or let's say values from one element accidentally being substituted and placed into a column of another element, or there's copy and paste errors that can be identified, and I've had a fair amount of experience both as a consultant and in industry identifying and working with these challenges. And this is kind of where GIM software comes in, and it really it makes it a lot more difficult to have those types of challenges, which is excellent. We want to be avoiding these types of mistakes, which can they can lead to generally they don't. Well, they can lead to huge problems actually if there's some really gross errors made, and that's ultimately what we want to avoid, and that's exactly what we've been able to find so far with when I've been using the GIM software or GIM applications. Then the data performance and our audits always seem to go much better.
Great. One of the things we've talked about over the last couple episodes is that geoscientific information and data in general can seem like an intangible thing. So do you think companies understand how important it is, how important GIM data is to the entire mining value chain?
That's a great question. I think at a high level, companies do. There is investment made into these software products. They're compared to other alternatives out there, or there are other cheaper alternatives out there. And sometimes companies will go with those instead, and I think those are definitely companies that might not necessarily understand how critical their data are, but with companies that even that do invest this, I think, or invest their money into these products, I think even then the full ramifications of this data might not necessarily be fully understood. I think there's opportunities out there for companies to even invest more into their management of their data, whether it's via staffing or other mechanisms to be checking and verifying their principal data. It's at the end of the day, the data that's collected by the geologist in the field, or that's collected at the drill site, ultimately, for a project that starts to advance down the mine value chain and get through, into some sort of advanced exploration stage where a mineral resource model is about to be created, there's really there's a knock-on effect with errors. They're carried through the process all the way through to a final resource estimate, and then a financial evaluation that let's say sits on top of a PEA or even a mineral reserve model that's underpinning a PFS or an FS. And so how important or how critical it is to ensure that the source data is correct and then properly stored in these databases, I think sometimes might not be completely whether it's understood or maybe respected as much as it could be.
That's really interesting, Jeremy, that you use the word respect, because that's not something I think that we hear very often when it comes to geoscientific information management. What do you see as the biggest challenge for GIM in your organization?
That's a question, and I'm not sure if I have the answer to that right away. It's as a software, it does take it takes a fair amount of training. At least with the software packages that I'm familiar with, it does take a fair amount of training and expertise to be used correctly and to be able to have someone manage the software. I think to its full capability. And do I consider that a challenge to GIM? I'm not sure if that is a challenge. User friendliness is always a benefit to software, but in terms of anything else within our organization, I'm not sure if I can identify any challenges right now. It's the goal of our GIM software is to store our data, and then we have to have protocols in place to make sure it's backed up on a regular basis in case there's some sort of catastrophic failure, or we lose our servers, et cetera. And then from there is to be able to export it, use it, manipulate it, and even to be able to generate some sort of quality control information on it. And right now that we're able to do all of that with our software, and we're able to do regular health checks and make sure that our data are in the type of shape that we need it to be in.
Excellent. One of the things that I think everybody in the industry is struggling a little bit with right now is the current market conditions are not fantastic for the resources industry. So how can GIM initiatives help organizations prosper when we are in a down cycle?
This is another tough question that I'm not sure if there's really an easy answer for. Ultimately, it starts with placing the value on the data first, and so there's a lot of good causes where companies can be spending their money, whether they're an exploration company or a mining company, wherever they are in the within the spectrum of the mining and exploration industry. And I think it really comes down to how companies want to prioritize this type of thing. I think we'll find, in general that the leading companies, prioritize their data collection and then data management, and then from with that you'll see that they generally have some fairly robust software packages or GIM packages in place. In general, I believe that's what we'll see. And so, right now in today's climate, where we have where every dollar is even more precious, and where resources or fundraising capabilities are limited, I think it's up to the companies who value their data the most, who will ensure that the correct management software and software to store their data is given priority, and that it takes the front seat.
That's great, Jeremy. I guess with the current market conditions as well, we're hearing a lot of talk around innovation, productivity, and efficiency in the resources industry. It seems to be the big buzzwords that everyone's using. What are some of the trends that are you seeing any trends emerging or innovative trends emerging at the moment that are possibly helping productivity in mining?
There's a saying that necessity breeds invention and it breeds efficiency, or something along those lines, right? This is where some of the best innovation, actually, that was the word I was looking for. Necessity breeds innovation, and I think there isn't any specific one trend that I can put my finger on right now. Where the industry as a whole is experiencing downsizing. Companies are having to cut staff to manage costs and to keep themselves at least economically viable, while times are tough. There's we can look at any one area, and whether it's geology, engineering, processing, where teams are trying to squeeze every bit of value they can. But I don't think, actually, right now, off the top of my head, I don't think I can actually give you a single trend that I'm noticing, other than the fact that companies are having to buckle down, and we're being forced to be more innovative. But unfortunately that's about all I can give you at this point in time. I'd have to think about that more.
I don't think you're the only one feeling like that, Jeremy. What kind of areas are you focusing on in this cycle to keep yourself competitive, keep the mine that you're working in competitive?
Yeah. Well, I guess the area that I work in the most is around mineral resource estimation, and so a mineral resource model is definitely an important part for I guess of the mine value chain, where a model is being generated from the base data that's collected in the field. So geologists are out there mapping, taking samples. There's whether there's some other exploration campaigns taking place, geochemistry, geophysics, et cetera, and then moving on and getting some drilling information, and then we're going and building these mineral resource models. And the mineral resource model it's there to give the best representation possible of the geology and of the mineralization, so a company can then determine whether or not the project itself could be economically viable. And so as the expression goes, garbage in equals garbage out. And so as somebody in my role, I'm very aware of the data that I'm using to then go ahead and try and generate a model, and it's always a collaborative effort with the geologists at site, with the database managers, and with metallurgists, geotechnical people, mining engineer. It's all one big collaborative effort. But we're all trying to do our best to make sure that this model is representative. And if the model isn't, then I think it opens up the opportunity for incorrect decisions to be made, which can ultimately cost the company a lot of money. And so, in terms of innovation, from my end, we've taken steps to purchase I think some leading software out there that helps us save time. It allows us to generate robust geological models, and then from there I'm trying to use the best techniques possible in terms of being able to analyze the data statistically, geostatistically, and then to be able to in the best way possible reproduce let's say variability that I'm seeing in grades, and have the model mimic what we would expect to find if we were to go and open up the ground. And from there, that ultimately, the goal is to make sure, or is to then help the mining engineers do a resource estimate, and then therefore put some sort of financial evaluation around this to see what type of potential benefit could we receive as a company.
Perfect. I think we're going to leave it at that today. If you've enjoyed our discussion, please tell your friends and colleagues about the podcast, which you can find on our Acquire newsroom at acquire.com.au.
You've been listening to Acquire's podcast, The Jim Channel. Find us at acquire.com.au.